Friends, in our reflection today, Jesus is teaching the crowds about loving your enemies, and it's one of the most difficult things in our faith that we're taught, is to love those who hate and who cause violence, those who really harm us. He says that's the standard. You know, if you want mercy, if you want forgiveness, you have to also give it and expect nothing in return. He gives many examples when he's telling his listeners, not just forgive your enemies, but do good to them. He invites them to not expect repayment. Even if you give to a neighbor or a loved one or anyone, if someone even takes something from you, don't bother trying to get it back. It's such a radical kind of shift. In Judaism at this time, there were laws that you could, for the sake of justice, you didn't have to forgive your neighbor. You could actually stone them if they did such evil. There are a lot of Jesus has a lot of different radical teachings that were very in an overly merciful way that people just didn't grasp in regards to his way of love. The way of love is Jesus Christ, is the way and the life and the truth. But at the time, people were used to eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. If you did harm to someone, there's actually in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, there are laws about, if someone stole from you and it became a public affair, you had to give back what you stole, but then you had to give up and then some extra. Let's say you stole someone's cattle and you had to give back the cattle, but then you had to give back a little extra for their suffering, etc. And we see that in the judicial system by, recompense, remuneration, reparation. There are other words that are used to, penance. That's another spiritual one. But you were expected to do something to offset the injustice you caused. Jesus lastly gives these. I gotta read it because I can't remember. He says, "Stop judging, and you will not be judged. Stop condemning, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you'll be forgiven." And then he has this very profound way of telling people, like, if you do these things, if you do good to your enemies, if you do good to all without expecting any payment, you will be paid back, like 100-fold. And then Jesus says these very words when he's explaining all this. He's like, love your enemies and do good to them, expecting nothing in return. Even sinners do that to their loved ones. Or he uses the word sinners, like the evil people in the world. Even they take care of their own, and they do love each other as well. But they're always, demanding something in return. This is the heart of the message. But he says, if you do that and you expect nothing in return, and after a lifetime of doing that, of following the way of love and mercy and forgiveness, he says, give and gifts will be given to you, a good measure, packed together, shaken down and overflowing, will be poured into your lap. For the measure with which you measure will in return be measured out to you. So this is a very profound statement from Jesus. He gives very descriptive words about what does it look like to build treasure in the kingdom of heaven. This is something invisible. This is not something temporal from our world. It's nothing, no value in this of what Jesus is teaching in this world. Rather, it's for the next world. It's for, there are two things you take with you when you die: all your sins and all your acts of love. Hopefully, you go to confession and you say, I'm sorry. Maybe you're anointed. Maybe you're given the apostolic blessing. These are all merciful, loving gifts Jesus gave to all of us Christians when he built his church on Peter. So But he says it in a very profound way, what it will look like. And this is like the only place where people are like, yeah, well, Peter once said and complained to Jesus when he says you have to give up everything and follow me. He's like, well, we've given up everything. What do we get? And it was an honest human question. And he says, you've given up family, wife, children, your jobs, your business. He said, I'll give 100-fold. But he doesn't explain what that would look like or in heaven. In Luke, in chapter 6, that's where he tells them. He says, it's going to be so profound. It's going to be falling on your lap, spilling out everywhere. Like, it's going to be so overwhelming you won't be able to contain yourself. The reward you will get for doing good works. This is not even a requirement to be Christian. This is extra credit. This is when you do acts of love for the sake of doing acts of love and not expecting anything in return. So think about these words and what Jesus means when he says, forgive your enemies and don't expect repayment to those you've given to, or for those who steal from you. It's a profound, radical, different way of love. And he's, last not least, if he teaches these things, because if we want to be forgiven and loved, if we want to have God's mercy, we also have to practice it and give it. God bless.